Okay, hi everybody, and thank you very much for attending today's webinar. Like I said, big thanks to our audience for joining us today to shed light on precious metals as an asset class for the South African investor. Zoltan's book, here's a copy of it, Going for Gold, A Guide for the South African Precious Metal Investor, delivers exactly what its title promises in a concise and very readable fashion. And of course, Johannesburg is the city of gold, and the precious metal has been both a blessing and a curse over the course of South African history. But Zoltan's book explains the whys and hows to benefit from the blessings that gold can bring. And I'm hoping that everybody can hear me out there. And so I'm just going to get started with a question to go right off the bat. For Zoltan, I mean, you stake out no claim as a financial advisor, but you feel strongly that investors should have a percentage of precious metals in their portfolio. I'm just wondering if you can elaborate a bit on that for our viewers. And I'm also simply going to note that this, of course, is Zoltan's product, but if I'm looking for expertise, say, in the area of equities, then I might go to someone like Paul Theron at Vestec, for example, and read the informative newsletter that they put out. But if I'm looking for expertise in the field of investing in precious metals, then I'm going to go to someone like Zoltan. So if you could just elaborate a bit for us on why you feel that, that as part of a diversified investment portfolio, that investors should have a certain percentage of precious metals in the mix. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you so much for that introduction. And hello to all the listeners, those who've joined. And hello to some of my clients who I think have been supporting me and my business for quite a while. So welcome to everybody. Thank you also to Penguin Random House for publishing this book, and of course to the Daily Maverick, for undertaking to organize and run and advertise this webinar. So sincere thank you from me. Ed, thank you for that question. I think the last 12 months have left every single person on the planet absolutely awestruck as to how quickly things can change. And quite frankly, it feels like we're in some sort of an apocalypse movie. And it's within this context of fear and panic and retrenchments and business closures, demand for silver, especially over the last probably about 12 months, has increased significantly. In fact, while demand has been off the charts over the past 4 months, we hit peak demand about 6 weeks ago. Now, to put this into perspective, we moved about 4 weeks worth of stock in a single weekend. And it's this kind of frenzied kind of global demand that has caught quite a lot of dealers unaware. The demand was so high that international suppliers placed all primary dealers on allocation. So stock was only available for a future delivery date. And we're still there. So, demand is still on the increase. The Perth Mint, for example, ran out of silver bullion products yesterday, which is unprecedented. So from where I stand, I think it's very clear that people are worried about the economy, about inflation, and more people are considering hedging themselves against whatever it is that they sense coming. And historically, silver and gold do very well during political and economic uncertainties, because innately, I think people perceive its intrinsic value as wealth in your hand, wealth outside of the electronic paper system. So it seems that silver and gold, especially during times of inflation, do very well. One way to look at it, I suppose, is that the inflationary scenario, if inflation is what the government tells us, and I'm not opening a can of worms, your savings would most likely go down by 1% almost on a monthly basis. So silver and gold are safe haven assets that preserve your wealth and purchasing power and your hard-earned money or currency. It serves as an insurance policy against any socio-economic or political turmoil, bad decisions, perhaps fiscal decisions made by government, but they also represent wealth outside of the banking system and outside of the money, the paper money system. So there's been a rush into it, and I have often explained that I advocate having a portion of your portfolio in precious metals. I'm not here to say sell your house, sell your equities, sell everything else, go into precious metals. I'm saying a portion of your portfolio should be in precious metals.
Right. And I suppose just to I mean, just what you were saying now about gold safe haven status. Like I say, I mean, that was thrown into sharp relief last year amid all the uncertainty around the unfolding COVID-19 pandemic, and there's still a lot of uncertainty out there about the vaccine rollout, be it domestically here in South Africa or globally, and I suppose there are other factors at play here right now too. For example, historically low interest rates globally right now, and things like that. And I was just wondering, what do you see that helping with? Where do you see that supporting the price of gold and silver in the near term?
Well, I think if you think about the trillions of dollars that are being printed at the moment by the Federal Reserve in the US, the rate at which we borrowing money, I mean, all of these things are inflationary.
Right. And so when you say we, you're talking about South Africa. Well, I suppose
South Africa.
Well, but yeah, South
globally,
Africa.
I mean, we might not own a printing press like the Federal Reserve in the US, where they can just print trillions of dollars. But the point I'm making is a lot of money printing eventually will lead to some form of inflation. If that gets out of hand, then typically, that is the time where gold and silver shine. And that was my attempt at a pun. But, gold and silver really do well during inflationary times. And anybody, whether you've got a pension fund, whether you've got investments, whether you've got savings, whether you've got money in the bank, you have to make a decision and you have to protect yourself against inflation, which, however you twist it and turn it, it is a form of taxation, which maybe 1 in a million people realize that it is actually a form of tax.
Right. So I just want to go into a couple of questions here that we've had. This one is from someone who says, I'm a 30-year-old Black South African with no investment portfolio because I believe that I needed a healthier bank account than I do now to invest in metals such as gold. How can I, with what I have, be part of this conversation?
Yeah, within the pandemic has done its job.
What's that? Sorry?
I'm saying 100 Rand that you've got today is worth less than it was a year ago. But if you bought silver a year ago, that's already up by 60 or 70% in 1 year. So you can already see how just in the last year during the pandemic, how silver has protected a person's purchasing power and savings.
Can someone with fairly limited means purchase silver and gold?
I think that's the beauty of gold and silver, but particularly silver. So gold is available in smaller denominations. So you can spend 28,000 Rand on an ounce of gold, or you can spend 1,500 Rand on 1 gram of gold. So it's available in different denominations. But the beauty of silver is it's called the poor man's gold, which means you can earn an ounce of silver for just under 600 Rand. So, the price of silver is not prohibitive. And I'm saying that, understanding how scarce it is for people to have any disposable income. But it is easy to get, and you've got smaller denominations, and the silver price is actually reasonably low, considering that gold is selling for $30,000 an ounce or just under.
Right. Sorry, Zoltan, you're just being asked to check your connection because you froze. I'm not sure if that has been... sorry for any technical difficulties out there, anybody. Does your connection seem fine?
Mine seems 100%. You break up every now and again, but I can make up what you're saying.
Okay, I've just seen in our chat that someone was just saying that you had appeared to be frozen. But anyway, let's continue. Somebody's asking on the chat room. Is cryptocurrency not the new gold? I suppose this is probably a question that you often get.
I'm not a crypto expert, but what I am seeing is that there has been a rotation into crypto out of silver and out of silver and gold into crypto. So it all depends on price. I've never been a fan of taking a look at crypto and putting it next to precious metals and juxtaposing the two and saying which is better. As far as I'm concerned, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, any of the other cryptocurrencies are forms of speculative digital assets. What they're going to be like, how they're going to grow, what's the adoption rate, all of those questions, I don't know. I'm not an expert. But I don't think it's better or worse. I think it's different. And if you want to have a portfolio that is diverse, then it makes sense for you to include crypto, but not at the expense of silver and vice versa. So more power to you. I think gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies can coexist, in a portfolio quite nicely.
Right. Like you say, just to emphasize again, you're not telling people to go out and put all their life savings or something like that into gold and silver, are you? Just to reiterate that.
No, not at all. In fact, I receive phone calls where a client will phone and say, "Hi, convince me to buy silver or gold." And my answer is no. My job is to help you once you've made a decision, once you've done your research, you've read, and once you understand precious metals and its function in your portfolio. Once that's clear in your head, I will then give you advice pertaining to what is the best product to buy, what percentage of your portfolio they want to dedicate to precious metals, what is the product that would be the easiest to sell, what product is the most popular on the market, because buying precious metals is reasonably easy. You do a Google search, you find somebody and you buy it. But that's only half of your journey. The other half of your journey is one day you might want to sell it. And when you sell it, you've got to make sure that you've got some form of relationship with someone who is willing to liquidate that silver and gold easily. As opposed to if you went on to, junk mail or Gumtree and you scored an ounce of silver from someone at a good price, you've got no one to offload that to. So, no, I'm fully aware that clients generally don't come to me, and I would never give them the advice to sell their house and everything else. So it's a balanced approach to an investment portfolio. Sure.
Okay. So and so somebody asked about cryptocurrencies, and now somebody else is asking about the kind of new cashless global economy that's coming about. So they're saying, I would like to inquire about the rumblings regarding a move to a cashless society and the new global system that seems to be rolling out. Will silver and gold be confiscated? And of course, I do know that in your book, you do actually address the issue of potential precious metal confiscation by the state.
Yes, so I'm trying to keep my answers as concise as possible. Obviously, we don't have time to go into a 30-minute discussion about one question. No. So hopefully those who are listening will buy the book and then they'll see, my theory and my thesis on confiscation. But a cashless society is coming. There are various places around the globe that have already implemented policies that would ensure that people use cash less and less, even within the South African context. And Africa is very different from Europe. So obviously within that sense, we are not as far as Europe, but even we are slowly moving towards using less and less cash. Whether it's, you pay with your phone or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I think that will be a reality.
Yeah, on that point, some people aren't aware of this, I believe, but checks are no longer accepted in South Africa. Basically.
Well, one of my friends, he moved to Scotland, and during the pandemic, they were not allowed to use cash because of COVID fears, so they had to tap their card. So, for all intents and purposes, Scotland already had a period where cash was not accepted. Now, I think in that scenario, gold and silver, I suspect, is going to become even more important, because if you have a cashless society where cash is difficult to get rid of or it's expensive to deposit, and you have a scenario in which cryptocurrencies are in use, and an additional scenario where governments might bring out their own versions of crypto or digital currency, then, silver and gold will remain the only ways in which you might be able to transact, live, buy anything outside of that digital system. So I see cashless society and the rise of cryptos as being really positive for silver and gold, as wealth, money outside of the digital system.
Okay. Just coming to back to the pandemic, we have a question here. Which metal do you believe will grow in value faster as the pandemic comes to a hopeful end?
So I think that silver is a superior metal to gold. And the reason for, there's many reasons, but silver is an industrial metal. The industrial application for silver currently is growing from one day to the next. If you follow any type of newsletter that highlights some of the new uses of silver, it's actually quite mind-boggling. From solar panels to the medical field, the health sciences, and the electronics industry cannot do without silver. There's about 2 ounces of silver in every BMW. So from that perspective,
our apologies. It seems to me that Zoltan is frozen.
The silver that is mined, up to 60% of it is used in industry. And currently it is too cheap to recycle. So most of the silver that is mined gets used in industry, and then it's sitting in landfill. So I think silver will do better in the future. And interestingly, silver has always outperformed gold in any bull market run by a factor of 2 sometimes. So historically, when precious metals have run, silver has always outperformed gold. So I think silver is a better bet from a fundamental perspective.
Okay. Somebody's asking, and this would come down to, this is a question related to liquidity, obviously. How easy is it to sell silver or gold?
I think the market in South Africa is maturing. And I yet have not essentially sent a client away who needed liquidity urgently and told them, sorry, I'm not going to buy a silver and gold. And we've had clients offloading silver in the millions. So the liquidity is not an issue, provided that you're dealing with a dealer who's mature enough to be able to help you with any kind of liquidity problems, or if they have to offload. In fact, the way that I've set up the business over the last 10 years is to ensure that we also offer a very, very good, probably the best price in South Africa for the silver that you sell back to us, that you purchased from us in the first place. That way, the secondary market is also stimulated, because it's no good everybody buying silver and then there's nowhere to sell. So all dealers who are registered and trusted and have been in the market, for a number of years, will make an offer on your silver. Even if they say to you, look, it's going to take us a little, you've got R1 million worth of silver to sell back. Please, come back to us next week. Instead of ordering from the mints, we will then order from you personally. In that way, the secondary market is stimulated. We don't have to wait for imports, so it works out for everybody. But make sure that the dealer that you're buying from is registered, trustworthy, and would have the liquidity to get rid of, some of the silver that you have. 10, 20, a couple of ounces here and there is never an issue. But some people do put quite a large amount of money into their silver.
Okay. Just on that question, when you're talking about supply chains and having dealers who you can trust and things like that. So, there's a lot of concern in South Africa at the moment regarding Zama activity and organized crime, as well as gold coming in from Zimbabwe, which is being laundered through South Africa, sometimes through a very elaborate kind of fat scam. So I'm just wondering, because also for investors, and not just investors in equities and things like that, but more broadly, ESGs, environmental, social, and governance concerns, are very important to investors at the moment, and are of growing importance. So I'm just wondering, how could people who are buying, say, gold locally here in South Africa, how will they know that it's not tainted, that it hasn't emerged from Zama activity, and that it's not enriching organized crime in some way?
Yes, so illegally mined gold is an issue in South Africa, and most of these activities, that take place in various parts of Johannesburg. Those illegal miners, whether they mine it or whether they bring it in, would try and sell that gold mainly to refineries in the form of gold dust or things like that. And your average informed investor would really try and get gold illicitly because it's not that easy to get. And if someone wants to meet you under a bridge to sell you some gold dust, I mean, that should sort of alert you that there's a problem. The bigger concern, is rather, or the worry that most of my clients express to me is, buying fake gold and silver. I think that seems to be something that is a bit of an issue. And to be honest with you, fake gold and fake silver are extremely rare in South Africa, at least in the form of investment grade coins and bars. Right. Most coins that you purchase, from a reputable dealer would have some sort of a security feature on it that makes it very easily identifiable. I mean, if you take a fake coin and a real one, you can see the difference because these security features are technologically advanced and so expensive that no backyard refiner or counterfeiter, would have the tools or the money to get that right. So I think generally a simple high-resolution picture from the internet, and you look at and compare the coin that you've got, you'll see straight away. But the security features are important. When it comes to gold, investors should ensure that they buy from a precious metal dealer who buys directly from the Rand Refinery or the South African Mint, because they only sell responsible gold. And all of the products, especially the gold products. Yes? So especially the gold products like the gold bars would come with serial numbers. So if you buy a 50-gram gold bar from me, for instance, and you get it in your hand, there's a serial number. You could call the Rand Refinery, to verify that that is indeed a genuine gold bar that was sold to one of the dealers. So there are ways to check that what you're buying is legitimate. Support the Rand Refinery and their products, like the Gold Kruger Rand and their bars, and then you have a guarantee that it's not illicit.
Right. On that note, and sorry, Zoltan, you appear to have frozen again, just briefly. We have a question just along those lines. That what are the benefits of buying bars as opposed to coins and silver?
So traditionally, bars were produced by private mints and private refineries, and coins are always produced by the various sovereign mints and would have a legal tender status. So the silver Kruger Rand is manufactured, released by the Reserve Bank. It has a legal tender status of 1 Rand. So it's government issued, whereas bars are generally made by private mints. Your advantage has always been price. Bars, because they come in bigger denominations like 10 ounce or 100 ounce or 1 kilogram, it would mean that you would get it at a slightly discounted rate or a slightly cheaper rate than what you would get a coin, because manufacturing or pouring a bar is less work than minting a coin.
Cost. Right. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a cost issue. It's a cost benefit, and also some people want to buy the silver at the cheapest cost possible, but at the same time, it's always a give and take. If you buy a 1 kilogram bar for, let's say, 25,000 Rand, but you need to sell 5,000 Rands worth of silver, you can't cut the bar. If you have 32 1 ounce coins, which comes to a kilogram, you can take 5 and sell it without hassle. So, it's a give and take. There are pros and cons.
Okay. I'm just going to remind people out there that we also have a poll going if you would like to partake in it. And we're asking, have you considered investing in precious metals? And asking, if you already invest in precious metals and want to learn more, I'm very interested but don't know where to start. And I've never considered it, but I am open to change. So we just have a little poll running here at the same time. So that's just
it will be interesting to see those results.
Yeah, it will be. So I got someone here that they've purchased ETFs in gold and silver, and both lost this particular investor money. That's just, there's no question mark there, but it is a question on the chat room. What's your response to that? Because I guess you don't deal so much in ETFs, do you? You deal more in the physical product.
No. A very controversial topic, and I'm going to tread very carefully because essentially ETFs, it's essentially a price exposure. So when you're buying those, you're not really buying an ounce of silver, you're buying exposure to the price. And that is very different from owning an ounce of silver in your hand. So, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. That's essentially the saying that's going around in the precious metals community. And if I understand it correctly, often the paper contracts are the very things that are used to flood the market and suppress the price, if there actually is price suppression. You can create 250 million ounces of paper contracts, dump it on the market, push the price down, whereas you can't do that with physical silver, because you can't just go and quickly mine an extra 250 million ounces or 100 million or whatever the case may be. So I've stayed away from that totally. I am not an expert in those, and right. My focus has always been not price exposure, but actually owning an ounce of physical metal in your hand.
Would invest just on that topic? This is just something that occurs to me. When you invest in gold equities, so in gold fields, Anglo,
sure,
that kind of thing, is that also exposing yourself to price movement without directly holding on, without actually physically owning gold or silver?
I think that's different, because in essence, you're buying stocks into a company. You can look at their books, you can see, so I think that would be very different. I would say stay away from price exposure, but mining stocks, it's a completely different scenario. There's a lot of money to be made in mining stocks. In fact, if a mining stock does well, you often would make more money on mining stocks than you do, on the physical metal. Often by a factor of 2 or 3. But once again, while I keep my eye open and I, look at the fundamentals of some of these companies, I'm not the person to speak with about, mining stocks. I buy their products.
Okay. Right. Okay. And I'm sure they appreciate that. So, and I'm also just wondering, we're getting lots of questions here, and I'm just trying to get through some more of them. Is there any real distinction between the various silver coins out there, Krugerrand, Silver Eagles, and the like? I see a lot of the questions are very practical.
I think that's a very good question. So I've heard people say, as long as you have silver, you're fine. Well, yes, that's in some ways true, but an American Silver Eagle or a Silver Krugerrand is better than a sterling silver teapot. It's a lot more liquid. And there are certain products on the market that are very popular. It is very well traded. And if you look at the way that I've tried to explain it, is that there are about 5 coins that I would say are the best coins in the world and are the most traded coins in the world. And that would be the South African Silver Krugerrand, the Britannia, the Silver Britannia, the American Eagle, the Canadian Maple, and the Australian Kangaroo.
Canadian Maple. I'm Canadian, by the way.
Oh, I see. I'm glad I didn't call you an American then. But so the point is that those are very well traded and recognized and trusted internationally and locally. So when you're getting rid of a Silver Krugerrand or a British Britannia, no one's going to say to you, hang on a second, who makes it? How long have they been around? Is it legitimate? They've got the security features. So I would generally tell clients, and I have been doing this for years now, that 60 to 70% of the precious metals portfolio that is made up of silver should be in these products. And it doesn't matter which one of these you buy. And if they are all equally trusted, then it becomes a matter of, well, what is well priced right now? What is the cheapest? Because if something costs 40 Rand less than the other, but both of them are trusted, then it makes sense to look at it and say, well, this time around, I'm adding these ounces because it is slightly cheaper. So yes, all of these coins that were mentioned are fantastic, well recognized. Just to give you an idea, we mined probably about 2.5 million ounces of silver in South Africa per year. That is our total silver production as a byproduct. We don't have a silver mine. We don't have dedicated silver mines. So it's a byproduct from gold, zinc, copper, etc. That's what we mine in a year. The United States Mint last month, I think, sold well over 3 million silver eagles in 1 month. So we don't have enough silver mined in a year to give to the American Mint to produce their one coin a month. So the American Eagle, for example, is the most popular coin in the world. The silver Krugerrand came to the party a few years ago, and now it looks like that is one of the most popular coins to buy. The Britannia, they've gone through a design change. It's a coin with 4 different security features on it, which means when you're buying a silver Britannia, there is no confusion that that is legitimate because it has 4 security features, which is a world's first. But all of them are equally impressive, and owning either one of them is ideal.
Okay. I've got an easy question here for you. Can you recommend which company is the best to invest with for silver?
Let me think for a minute. Silver Sphere Trading. So look, we've been around for 10.
And sorry, it looks to me like Zoltan may have frozen again, briefly. We apologize for that. Hopefully, but usually it's just for a few
suppliers
seconds.
From around the world that supply us with silver. We SA Mint dealers, we Rand refinery purchasers. So we have not just the low prices, we also offer very reasonable prices when somebody needs liquidity, and we also have the range.
Right.
And we've been serving the community for a while. As far as I can tell, all of our reviews on Google are positive. So we work very hard to make sure that we serve our clients, to the best of our abilities.
Okay. Someone else asking, how easy is it to sell silver as an investor, but not as a reseller when you want to cash in? I think you've covered it. Yeah.
So there are 3 ways, to sell your silver. So if you're an investor and you have physical silver, you've got 3 options. One of them is to try sell it privately, and it's a bit of a hassle, but there are certain platforms that you could go on, register, and sell your silver. One of them would be Bid or Buy. Bid or Buy has a platform. Everybody's, most of the buyers and the sellers there, have to register and go through a vetting process. So, that would be one option. The other option is to go and sell it to private refineries, whether it's the Rand refinery, whether it's Gold Reef City Mint, whether it's metal concentrators in Cape Town. So there are private refineries that would buy your silver in any form, quite often in reasonably large amounts. So that would be your second option. The third option would be to actually make sure you buy from a dealer where you never have to worry about selling it on an online platform and then worrying about how you're going to get that silver shipped to somebody in Cape Town if you are in Johannesburg. And then you have to worry about insurance, thefts, couriers, etc. So buy from a dealer and make sure that the dealer you're purchasing from, that you are well versed with their buyback policy. And if they have a solid buyback policy and they make it hassle-free, in other words, they don't tell you, well, come and drop off your silver, but will actually organize a courier to go collect from your house, fully insured, and bring it in and pay you out for it, then I think you're taking on risk that you shouldn't have to do.
Okay. And my apologies, I haven't been naming the questionnaires, which I've been reminded I should be. So I've got a question here from Cecil Gilbart. I missed the first part. What percentage should gold be as part of your portfolio? And what do you think of SA gold shares compared to offshore gold shares? Well, I guess the latter, you admit you're not an expert on that, but if you could address the first one.
Yeah. So I think when you are thinking through the question, how much of my portfolio should be dedicated to precious metals, I think it's highly personal. And, there is no one size fits all answer. So the way that I've approached this question and what I've tried to communicate to my clients is you've got to look at the length of time that you're looking to invest in. So let's say 10 to 15 years. And then you've got to think, what kind of a world are we going to live in 10 to 15 years? Where will the rand be? What will the political situation be like? And I think if you look at it from a personal perspective, then you can make a decision. If you think that it's going to be rainbows and unicorns, if you think that the rand is going to get stronger, if you think, it's going to be kind of wonderful economic growth, then you've got no business investing more than 5, maximum 10% of your portfolio into precious metals, because they serve as an insurance policy precisely against things like socioeconomic uncertainty. So if you think life is going to be great, we're going to grow, then, you can minimize your exposure to precious metals. But, if you're sitting and saying, I'm 50-50, I'm divided whether, where we're going economically. I'm not sure where the rand is going to be in 10 years relative to the dollar, or even relative to an ounce of gold. So if you feel that things are uncertain and you're worried about the future, then you increase that exposure according to your view of the future. That means, there's no financial advisor or precious metal dealer that can give you that advice. Then it becomes, up to you personally to take responsibility and make a decision as to what portfolio should be. As far as I'm concerned, the minimum amount in a portfolio at the moment, the way that I see it, would be at least 20%.
Okay. So there's an important question here. Leah Peterson is asking, is the book available at any bookstore? And I just have a public service announcement to make on that note. And that is that Zoltan's book will be available for attendees to purchase in the webinar for 180 Rand with free delivery anywhere in South Africa. So that should answer that question. And then Werner Steris is asking, what is your advice for safe storage?
That is one of the best questions you can ask.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that one of the anecdotes that Zoltan relates in his book is that he had a client who sold his house and then needed to get a metal detector because he couldn't remember where all his silver and gold was buried in his garden. So that's probably it's best not to bury it under your rose bushes or something like that, I guess.
Yes, I should have actually made an offer to purchase on that house because I know how much that client bought. So when it comes to storage, the best option is to have it stored at a private vault. That's not always possible because, if you live out on a farm somewhere and you're not in either Johannesburg, Pretoria, Durban, or Cape Town, I'm not aware of any vaults anywhere outside of those, 4 cities. So, but a private vault would be ideal. So, for example, in Johannesburg, we've got IBV or International Bank vaults or Knox Titanium vaults. These are all private vaults, which basically means that your precious metals is safe. Some offer insurance, automatic insurance with every box that you take out. And these private vaults are not susceptible to bank closures or bank holidays. We've seen bank holidays in Greece, in Cyprus. If the bank's closed for a week for whatever reason, you can't access your precious metals. So ideally, you would want to go to a professional vaulting service. Otherwise, there are so many different ways of hiding your precious metals in your house. You can buy a really good category 2 or 3 safe. But I think generally a private vaulting company would be ideal, because even if, God forbid, somebody comes in and forces you to open your safe, there's nothing in there. So private vaults.
Right. So great. And just on another topic, someone's wondering if you can expand on owning other precious metals like platinum and rhodium, of course. And of course, there's a lot of talk about rhodium right now. It's gone over $20,000 an ounce. It's apparently triggered a wave of theft of catalytic converters in the United States. And obviously, and South Africa is by far still the world's biggest platinum group metals producer. So maybe if you could speak to that for Mark Brunner.
Thank you, Mark. As the South African precious metals market matures, the gut reaction is to go for gold. Once we get through that, then they start to consider silver. Once we get from gold and silver, then slowly they start to ask, well, what about platinum? What about palladium? What about rhodium? One of the disappointing things for me was a couple of years ago, I sent out an email to my clients to say, I have access to well-priced palladium. If anybody is interested in expanding their precious metals portfolio into some palladium, then let me know. Out of the 2,000 clients at that stage on my mailing list, 2 of them responded. So it's not that those metals are not going to do very well. It's that the market doesn't seem to be mature enough, and I don't think it's really on the radar of precious metal investors. And as a result, buying it would be easy, but you also need a market broad and wide enough to be able to sell it when you want to sell. And at the moment, platinum is starting to come to the fore. I'm selling more and more platinum, on a year-by-year basis. But very rarely do I get anybody asking about rhodium or even palladium. And the industrial usage of both, has skyrocketed. Especially, looking at platinum, and it'll be very interesting to see where platinum goes, because the reason palladium became so popular was because it was cheaper than platinum for catalytic converters. Now, platinum, palladium have kind of... Absolutely. So now, what will the future hold? Will we require even more platinum, or because we're phasing out catalytic converters, going into electrical cars, we're going to have a lot less use of platinum? So the price can either go up through the roof, or it can plummet because, there aren't any uses for it, or at least its use is decreasing somewhat relative to palladium or other metals.
Right. Just also, we have a question here from Judy Scott Goldman, and this is a very pertinent question that speaks to your book. Financial advisors always talk about the diversity of assets, but rarely mention investing in gold or silver. This is what she says is from her experience, which she modestly says is limited. And I'm just wondering, why is that? Well, she's wondering, why is that?
I feel like I'm being set up with this question because, I obviously respect financial advisors immensely, but in my book, I do take them to task. And I take them to task precisely because it's not that they don't mention it, it's that they actively discourage investment in precious metals. And look, it doesn't take a genius to figure out why. It's not their product. If I go to a steakhouse, I'm sure the manager of the establishment is not going to send me to the vegan shop down the road. He's trying to sell me a steak. So in some ways, it's self-preservation. It's the product that they have been trained to sell. The issue is often they actively discourage it. So if you ask, well, what about gold and silver? It's like, oh no, don't be silly, stay away, it's very volatile, etc., etc. Well, if you look at the price of silver and gold over the past 15 to 20 years, the chart basically goes up in rand terms. It would be very difficult to find, a product that can give you the same kind of returns, in rands than what we've seen from precious metals over the last, 15, even 20 years. So I hope, interestingly, I have quite a few clients who are financial advisors. And, we've had a really good partnership, having a discussion where I send some of my clients to him, for additional advice on the non-precious metal side of their portfolio, and he sends clients to me for the precious metals portfolio. So financial advisors selling various paper products, and a precious metal dealer can actually coexist and ride into the sunset together.
Right. Good. Thanks. I just want to give out what I believe are the results of the poll. So I already invest in, from our audience, obviously, I already invest in precious metals and want to learn more. That is from 62% of our audience. I'm very interested, but don't know where to start. That is 30%. Sorry, and I'm just getting to that. And I've never considered it, but I'm open to change. That is 8%. I think that's 8% that you're trying to persuade now.
Yes, there's a question that I'm just reading, if I may address it, because I think it raises a very important thing. Niven Howard said your coins or our coins were not accessible during the pandemic through some of the private bank vaults. And I think that is an important thing to note. As soon as you part ways with your silver and gold, even if it's in a professional vault, and this is the first time that I've experienced this, I was holding coins on behalf of my clients, and one of my clients said, well, what happens if I want my coins? And I had to say, well, I'm storing it for you at a professional vaulting facility, but we're in lockdown. I will not be able to give you gold and silver. So that was something rather, scary and different. And I mean, that was the first time we've experienced anything like that. But at the same time, while you were not given access to your silver and gold, you also couldn't spend it anywhere anyway. Even if somebody wanted to sell something to me, you were not allowed to get into your car, even to come to my house, even if I wanted to buy the gold and silver from you. So, those kinds of extreme situations are rare. And, this is the first time I'm over 40, and this is the first time I've experienced something like that. But, ideally, having it on you, owning the gold and silver and having it in your possession is always the best case scenario, although not always the safest.
Right. I think just maybe a follow-up here from Wendy Forster. She was wondering if you could reconfirm what the top 5 coins are.
Sure. It's the silver Krugerrand. It's the British Britannia, the Canadian silver maple, the American silver eagle, and the Australian silver kangaroo. There are others, and my clients tend to collect a wide array of coins, but all of these would still fall within the category of low premium bullion coins. And by low premium, I mean that you get the most amount of silver for the least amount of rands. And the coins that we sell don't have any collectible or numismatic value. It's not rare. It doesn't come in pretty sets and boxes and certificates. You're essentially investing, and that's very different from a collector. So the silver that we provide is low premium bullion, but they still make beautiful coins. So you're not really losing out on the beauty. In other words, you're not getting a rough poured silver bar. You've got the option to buy some coins that are really, really beautiful.
Okay. Carrie van Skalkvik has a question. Does Silver Sphere not offer to store the silver and issue a certificate to the value of the silver?
No, we don't. We used to offer that service for a while, but we are not a vaulting company. And sometimes you offer a service, you see if you can do it, in the most excellent way possible. But we've realized that there are professionals out there who can do it better than us. So no, we don't, but we do refer clients to companies like International Bank Vaults in Sandton and in Durban, or the Knox Vaults. So in a way, we've realized that, we sell the bullion, but we can never excel or outperform some of the professional companies that have such brilliant security, that you'll never have to worry about, anyone coming in and emptying those vaults. Right. So we offered it, but not anymore.
Can I ask a question? The fact that if you have own physical gold and silver, and the fact that you need to store it, it's not an additional cost. I mean, if I invest in equities, I don't need to pay extra to store my equities somewhere. I don't need to pay extra to store bonds somewhere. My own property, it's just property, right?
Exactly.
What kind of a cost do you incur as an investor in direct physical precious metals for storage and safety?
So ideally, what you would want to think about is that to store your precious metals, you should not be paying more than between 1% and 2% at the absolute most. If you look at it from that perspective, that's the same as a cash deposit fee. I'm talking about per year. Bottom of the range, smaller boxes where you can store quite a lot of gold, I mean, works out to something like 3,500 Rand per year. So that is the entry level cost for you to store your precious metals offsite, for a year. Now, if you've got 100 kilograms of silver, that's a slightly, the math changes, because 1% of 100 kilograms in terms of cost would be a little bit more, but you also have more silver to store, so you need more space. So that can go up to 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 Rand for a large box, and then even beyond that. So yes, it does cost money to if you decide to store your silver offsite, but that just comes with the territory. It also depends, obviously, on how much gold and silver you have, because if you've got 20, 30, if your savings, 20% or 10% of your portfolio represents, maybe 20 or 30 coins, silver coins, which would work out to maybe 25,000 Rand. That's something that you can very easily hide around your house. You wouldn't need to then take that and spend 3,500 Rand to vault it. So it really depends on the quantity of silver and gold that you have in your possession.
Or you can bury it, like I say, under your rose bush, but you just have to remember where you buried it.
I mean, one of the, in the book I mentioned this. I mean, one of my clients, had, close to 1 million Rands worth of gold put in a flask, hidden inside this huge pot plant on his patio, with a lemon tree on top. He said to me, if they clean me out, I can promise you they're not going to take my pot and my lemon tree. And he used to tell me, the smile on his face when he used to have his cup of coffee early in the morning on his patio while he's staring at his investment portfolio inside his pot plant. So there are ways to get around the problem of storage. Imagination is your limit.
That sounds inventive. I just wanted to ask something a bit about one of the things you go over in your book, and again in a very concise and readable kind of way, is the history of money. And one of the things that struck, and the fact that that gold and silver have been for thousands of years have been coveted, which is where the word which is where the adjective precious comes in before the word metal. Yes. It's because they've actually been coveted and regarded as a store of value. What I find interesting is that in the Americas, in South America, the Incas produced gold. They didn't have exactly the same concept of gold as a store of value as the Spanish conquistadors did. And this was Voltaire and Candide make some light of this. But there is still, they still obviously saw some value in it, and this was obviously completely independent from the rest of the world. And it seems that people in societies that are unconnected have come to value gold. Why do you think that is, and does that help underline your thesis?
Well, I don't think that you've heard of the steel bug or the copper bug or the aluminium bug, but I'm sure you've heard about the silver and the gold bug. So, when it bites, it's almost difficult to rationalize, that strong desire to own the metal. Asking the question, why do I think that is? I strongly suspect that the answer is a combination. It's psychological, and in some respects, I think it's spiritual as well. So in Judeo-Christian and Islamic theology, for example, gold is viewed as money as God intended it to be. So there is a strong religious and psychological connection there, even today. Sadly, what I find is that, how much this fascination with gold has in some ways evaporated in the 21st century, most likely because 50 years ago, the world has gone off the gold standard. So money is no longer backed by gold. The dollar is no longer as good as gold. Gold and silver are no longer even in circulation. They are perceived primarily as a commodity, not really as money. So, for example, the 1965 1 Rand coin was actually 80% silver. And my granny used to ask me for some silver when she needed some change for the parking meter. Because silver in her day was money, and money was silver, and it even reflects in her language. Now money is being sort of replaced by paper currencies, which has a declared value, a fiat value. So I'm not surprised that silver and gold have, become contrarian ways of owning wealth today, to which people feel some sort of a connection. For me, it's always been treasure. When I think of gold and silver, pirates and treasure has fascinated me. So I've had that connection and pull towards precious metals. And it's difficult to verbalize. But once you understand the gold and silver bug, then it becomes a very interesting reality as to how much value, perceived, emotional, and even spiritual value these things have. Even as you mentioned, in civilizations that never met. And even if they didn't use it initially as money, they understood gold to be valuable. And that seems to be a common human condition.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned the Judeo-Christian and Islamic traditions in that regard, because also what some people regard as the fourth Abrahamic faith, the Mormon religion, founded, of course, by Joseph Smith in early to mid 19th century America. One of his biographers said that he had the poor man's infatuation with gold. He was a treasure hunter. He was a gold hunting, of course, when apparently came across the golden plates and things like that. So it's just interesting that you do see this kind of thread running through the world's faith.
And by the way, Asia's fascination with gold hasn't waned at all. China, the amount of gold that they import, India's fascination with gold jewelry as gifting. We've got half the world's population that is still captivated by gold, not just as an investment. They don't really see it like that. They see it in much broader terms. Right.
We're going to have to wrap up very soon. I'm sorry if we haven't been able to get to all of the questions. But I think if Zoltan could see them still in the chat room afterwards, we might be able to respond briefly later to some of the questions that are still outstanding. I apologize that we weren't able to get to all of them during the chat, but it was great to see so many and to see such interest in the subject, and to see such interest in this book. And I just want to, do you have any concluding remarks you'd just like to make, Zoltan?
Well, I just wanted to thank you. I think you've done a great job. Thank you for facilitating this. Again, thank you to Penguin. Thank you to the Daily Maverick. I'm really pleased to see that this investing in precious metals is going more mainstream than it has been over the last number of years. And this book is not a vanity project. I genuinely am trying to make people aware of other options that they have. And I think, if people buy the book, read it, and are convinced that, precious metals should play a larger part in their portfolio, I think this will be, good for the greater community, South African precious metals community. So, thank you for all of those who've attended. Thank you to my clients. I'm seeing a lot of the chats from them. Thank you for your support over the years. I appreciate you very much. And thank you for everybody's time.
Great. Yes. Thank you, everybody. And I think we're going to wrap it up. And we hope it's been informative and insightful. And like I say, if you're intrigued, please buy the book. There we go. Cheers. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.